So someone asked me, what are my top 5 favorite sales books? And so because I wanted to go a step further, I decided let me just include 6 sales books because that's how hard I work. And so I guarantee the number 1 sales book on here, on my list here, is probably a book you've never heard of before.
How'd you do that?
I see that success is not something you pursue. It is something you are.
All right, so you got to know how to sell, you got to know how to market, you got to know the whole shebang. So here are my top 6 sales books that's going to show you just how to sell better. And so I don't actually have the actual books. I tend to read Kindle because I'm sophisticated. So I decided to get the digital versions instead of the actual book because I can travel with the Kindle instead of bringing all these books. So all you book lovers, ooh, whoop-de-doo. So here's my number 6 one. The number 6 is called Zero Resistance, and I don't know if that's good or not. That's probably not good to show you like that. But number 6 is Zero Resistance Selling. This is by Maxwell Maltz. And Zero Resistance Selling is really good just because it talks about the psychology of being a salesperson. And a lot of people have call reluctance, they have email reluctance, and they have performance issues. And hey, it happens to all of us, performance issues. That's cool. But basically, Zero Resistance Selling, it shows you the psychology that you need to be in order to sell. And so that's why I like Zero Resistance Selling. So that's number 6. Number 5 is Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. And Aaron Ross wrote this book, Predictable Revenue, where he basically shows you that you need to have a system in order for you to actually build your business. And this is what I talk about all the time. So he probably got it from me. But Predictable Revenue, he goes through an email sequence. And his email sequence is actually pretty good as well. So Predictable Revenue is a really good sales book. And then number 4 is the Sales Development Playbook by Trish. I don't know how to say her last name. It is a Sales Development Playbook. And this is a really good book because eventually you're going to go from doing the selling to teaching other people how to do the selling. So you're going to go from here's what I'm doing to here's what you need to do to run the sales. And so you got to learn how to manage people. You got to learn how to manage the sales process. And that's what this book is about. It's a really good book on basically your entire sales structure rather than here's just how to sell. Number 3 is actually probably one of the best books I've ever came across on how to actually sell. So not the sales structure, but how to actually sell and the real sales tips and everything. And that is called The Sandler Rules by David Sandler. And the Sandler Rules I think it's like 49 rules, 49 steps, and it walks you through all these, like an entire thing on how to freaking sell. And so this is like the best sales book I've ever read in terms of here are tactical strategies and what you need to say when people say this. And it is probably the best in terms of selling. And number 2 is a book by the Grant Cardone, the one and only Grant Cardone. It's If You're Not First, You're Last. And this is a really good sales book because once again, it gets into the psychology. So most salespeople think it's about, oh, what do I say when someone says this? And oh, I got to respond like this. But sales always comes down to your psychology. If you believe in your product, if you believe you're the best, it's going to communicate. And well, you're going to communicate that to other people. So that's why I like Grant Cardone's book, If You're Not First, You're Last, because it gets into the psychology of, hey, if you're not first, you're freaking last. It's a great title. The number 1 book. The absolute number 1 book, and I don't think this will ever get knocked off my pedestal as number 1 ever, unless I decide to write a freaking sales book, because that's how I roll. But the number 1 book with sales is something you never heard of before. It's called The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. And The True Believer is he's referring to people who believe in religion. So he's saying, like, here's how religion works. Here's the psychology behind religion. And through this, he talks about persuasion. So he says, okay, here's why people are persuaded, and here's how you persuade the masses. And this is the absolute hands down the best book on persuasion you will ever read. And you got to take some notes. I mean, pay close attention because it will show you what you really need to do to persuade people, to really get them to buy something. And those are the top 6 books in terms of sales. So number 6 is Zero Resistance Selling by Maxwell Maltz. Number 5 is Predictable Revenue, or 5 is Predictable Revenue with Aaron Ross. Number 4 is The Sales Development Playbook by Trish something. Number 3 is The Sandler Rules by David Sandler. 2 is If You're Not First, You're Last by Grant Cardone. And number 1 is The True Believer by Eric Hoffer. I would be number 1 if I wrote a book. I just don't feel like writing a sales book. So, yeah. But those are really my top 6 sales books in terms of how to sell.